Maya Chen never imagined that spilling coffee on a stranger would change her entire life. At 22, she was working 2 jobs to pay for her final year of nursing school, mornings at Sunrise Cafe and evenings tutoring high school students. Her life was predictable, safe, and completely ordinary. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Maya rushed through the glass doors of the luxury office building where she delivered premium coffee to high-end clients. Her sneakers squeaked against the marble floor as she balanced a tray of steaming lattes, her nursing textbooks tucked under one arm. Alexander Blackstone was having the worst month of his life. The tech billionaire's company, Blackstone Innovations, was under investigation for alleged data breaches. At 31, he'd built his empire from nothing, but now everything he'd worked for hung in the balance. He was walking briskly toward the elevator, phone pressed to his ear, when it happened. Maya rounded the corner too quickly. Alexander stepped backward to avoid a maintenance cart. They collided with devastating precision. Hot coffee erupted everywhere. Alexander's $1,000 suit was instantly ruined, and Maya's textbooks scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. For a moment, they just stared at each other, his steel-gray eyes meeting her warm brown ones. "I'm so sorry." Maya dropped to her knees, frantically gathering her books. "Let me pay for dry cleaning, I can—" "Stop." Alexander's voice was surprisingly gentle. He crouched down, handing her a coffee-stained anatomy textbook. "Are you hurt?" Maya looked up, realizing she was face to face with the most attractive man she'd ever seen. Dark hair, sharp jawline, eyes that seemed to see right through her, her cheeks flushed crimson. "I'm fine, but your suit." She gestured helplessly at the brown stains spreading across his jacket. Alexander glanced down and actually smiled. "It's just fabric. What's your name?" Maya Chen." She stood up, still clutching her books. "I really can pay for—" "Maya Chen." He repeated her name like he was memorizing it. "I'm Alexander, and you're not paying for anything." The elevator arrived with a soft ding, and Alexander's assistant, James Morrison, emerged, immediately taking in the scene with professional alarm. "Mr. Blackstone, your 10 a.m. meeting—" "Reschedule it," Alexander said, without taking his eyes off Maya. "Ms. Chen, are you sure you're not hurt? That was quite a collision." Maya shook her head, still overwhelmed by the intensity of his attention. "I'm fine, really. I'm just sorry about your suit." "Forget the suit." Alexander pulled out a business card and handed it to her. "Call me if you change your mind about compensation, or if you just want to talk." As Alexander disappeared into the elevator, Maya stared at the elegant card in her hand. Alexander Blackstone, CEO, Blackstone Innovations. The phone number was embossed in gold. "Lucky girl," commented Mrs. Patterson, the elderly receptionist, who'd witnessed the entire exchange. "Alexander Blackstone doesn't give out his personal card to just anyone." Maya tucked the card into her textbook, telling herself she'd throw it away later. She had no business calling a man like Alexander Blackstone. 3 weeks passed. Maya couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious businessman with kind eyes who'd refused to let her pay for his ruined suit. She'd even walked past that building twice, hoping to see him again, but never did. She'd kept his business card, though. She told herself it was just because she forgot to throw it away. Sometimes she'd find herself staring at it during study breaks, wondering what kind of man gave his personal number to a clumsy coffee shop worker. Then came the call that changed everything. "Maya, this is Jennifer from Sterling Events. We have an emergency catering situation for tonight's charity gala. Can you work a serving shift? The pay is triple your usual rate." Maya hesitated. She had a major exam tomorrow, but the money was too good to refuse. Her student loans were crushing her, and every extra dollar meant she could maybe afford to eat something other than ramen this week. "I'll be there." The Blackstone Foundation Charity Gala was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over women in designer gowns and men in pristine tuxedos. The venue was the ballroom of the city's most exclusive hotel, with marble columns and artwork that probably cost more than Maya's entire education. Maya felt invisible in her simple black serving uniform as she carried trays of champagne through the crowd. She listened to conversations about yacht purchases and vacation homes, feeling like an anthropologist studying an alien culture. She was refilling glasses near the auction stage when she heard a familiar voice behind her. The girl who declares war on expensive suits. Maya spun around, nearly dropping her tray. Alexander stood there in a perfectly fitted tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine. "You!" Maya's heart hammered. "What are you doing here?" "It's my foundation's gala." Alexander's smile was amused. "The question is, what are you doing here? Last time I saw you, you were studying to be a nurse." "I'm working my way through school." Maya lifted her chin defensively. "Some of us can't afford to just buy our education." Something shifted in Alexander's expression. "I didn't mean to offend you. Actually, I admire that. Most people I know have never worked a day in their lives." Before Maya could respond, her supervisor appeared. "Chen, stop socializing and get back to work." Alexander's jaw tightened. "Excuse me, what's your name?" "Thomas Morrison, event coordinator." "Well, Thomas, Ms. Chen is no longer working. Tonight. She's my guest." Thomas paled. "Mr. Blackstone, I didn't realize—" "Now you do." Alexander turned to Maya, extending his arm. "Would you like to see the gala from a different perspective?" Maya stared at his offered arm, her mind racing. This was crazy. She was a broke nursing student, and he was. Well, he was Alexander Blackstone, but something in his eyes made her decision for her. "Okay," she whispered. Alexander whisked her away from the serving area to a private balcony overlooking the city. The noise of the gala faded to a distant hum, replaced by the soft sounds of traffic 20 floors below. "I can't be here," Maya said, suddenly aware of how out of place she was. "I'm supposed to be working. I need that money." "You're supposed to be whatever you want to be." Alexander loosened his bow tie. "And don't worry about the money. I'll make sure you're compensated for the full evening." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I don't want your charity." "It's not charity, it's payment for services rendered. You're keeping me from dying of boredom at my own gala." Despite herself, Maya smiled. "It's your gala. Shouldn't you be enjoying it?" "I hate these things," Alexander admitted, leaning against the balcony railing. "Room full of people who only talk to me because they want something. But you argued with me about taking your money for my suit. When's the last time someone told me no about anything?" Maya studied his profile in the city lights. "That sounds lonely." "It is." Alexander turned to look at her. "Tell me about nursing school. Why did you choose it?" Maya found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told him about growing up with a chronically ill mother who'd struggled to afford medical care, about wanting to help families like hers, about her dreams of working in pediatric care where she could make a real difference in children's lives. "My mum died 2 years ago," Maya said quietly. "Complications from diabetes that could have been managed better if we'd had consistent health care. I don't want other families to go through that." Alexander listened with an intensity that made her feel like the most important person in the world. He asked thoughtful questions, remembered details, seemed genuinely interested in her answers. "What about you, Nas?" Maya asked. "How does someone become a billionaire by 31? Alexander's smile turned rueful. "By having nothing to lose and everything to prove. I grew up in foster care after my parents died in a car accident. Built my first computer from spare parts I found in a junkyard when I was 14. That must have been hard. It taught me that everything worth having requires work. Money, success, relationships, none of it comes easy." Alexander paused. "But sometimes the best things come when you're not looking for them." They talked for hours, about dreams, fears, the weight of expectations. Maya learned that beneath the polished exterior, Alexander was lonely in ways that money couldn't fix. He learned that Maya's quiet strength came from surviving hardships that would have broken most people. As the evening wore on, the champagne and the magic of the night lowered Maya's usual defenses. When Alexander suggested they continue the conversation at his penthouse, she surprised herself by agreeing. "I've never done anything like this before," Maya admitted as they rode up in his private elevator. "Like what?" "Gone home with someone." "I barely know. Gone home with anyone, actually." Alexander stopped the elevator between floors and turned to face her fully. "Maya, if you're not comfortable with this, I can have my driver take you home right now. No judgment, no awkwardness. Maya looked into his eyes and saw genuine concern, not pressure or expectation. I want to come with you. That's what scares me. Maya woke up in silk sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, and for a moment she couldn't remember where she was. Then it all came flooding back. The gala, the conversation on the balcony, the way Alexander had looked at her like she was precious, how he'd been so gentle when she'd told him she was a virgin, how he'd made sure she was ready for every step, how he'd held her afterward like she was something breakable and beautiful. Panic set in immediately. Maya sat up, clutching the sheet to her chest. Alexander was gone, but she could hear water running in what must be an enormous bathroom. Her clothes were folded neatly on a chair. Even that small kindness made her heartache. What had she done? She'd given her virginity to a man who was completely out of her league, a man who probably did this kind of thing all the time. The magic of last night suddenly felt foolish and naive. She dressed quickly and quietly, her hands shaking as she buttoned her borrowed dress. Alexander had insisted she couldn't wear her serving uniform to his penthouse. This was a mistake. A beautiful, magical mistake, but still a mistake. Alexander was a billionaire philanthropist who dated supermodels and socialites. She was a nursing student who worked at a coffee shop. Last night had been a fairy tale, but fairy tales weren't real. Maya wrote a quick note on expensive stationery from his desk. "Thank you for a wonderful evening. Please don't try to find me." She slipped out before Alexander emerged from the bathroom, taking the stairs instead of risking the elevator. By the time she reached the street, tears were streaming down her face. Maya took 3 buses to get home to her tiny studio apartment, still wearing Alexander's borrowed coat over her dress. She sat on her narrow bed and cried for everything she'd gained and lost in the span of 12 hours. 6 weeks later, Maya was staring at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it. This couldn't be happening. She was on birth control, had been for years to regulate her periods. But the doctor had explained that antibiotics from a recent sinus infection could have interfered with the pill's effectiveness. Maya sank onto her tiny bathroom floor, overwhelmed. She was 3 months away from graduating nursing school. She had no money, no family support system. Her mother had died 2 years earlier, and no idea how to contact the father of her baby. She'd tried Googling Alexander Blackstone after that night, but quickly realized how impossible reaching him would be. He was surrounded by layers of security, assistance, and corporate machinery. And even if she could reach him, what would she say? "Hi, remember that night 6 weeks ago? Surprise, you're going to be a father." The internet was full of articles about Alexander's business dealings, his foundation work, his rare public appearances. But the personal details were sparse. He kept his private life extremely private, and Maya understood why. With his wealth and status, he probably had people trying to get close to him for the wrong reasons constantly. For 3 days, Maya barely ate or slept. She walked through her classes and work shifts like a zombie, trying to process this new reality. Her clinical rotations at the hospital felt surreal. She was learning to care for other people's babies while carrying a secret that felt too huge to contain. Finally, her best friend, Sofia Rodriguez, cornered her after their pharmacology class. "Okay, Spill, you look like you haven't slept in a week, and you've been staring at the same textbook page for 20 minutes. What's wrong?" Maya broke down and told Sofia everything. About the gala, about Alexander, about the pregnancy test. Sofia listened without judgment, occasionally handing Maya tissues as the whole story poured out. "First things first, have you seen a doctor?" Sofia asked when Maya finished. "I made an appointment for tomorrow." "Good. Second, have you decided what you want to do?" Maya had been wrestling with that question for days. "I want to keep the baby," she whispered. "I know it's crazy, but I already love this little person, and maybe it's a sign. My mom always said everything happens for a reason." Sofia smiled. "Then that's what we'll figure out. You're not alone in this, Maya. We'll make it work." "But what about school? What about money? What about—" "One thing at a time," Sofia said firmly. "First doctor's appointment, then we make a plan." Dr. Rebecca Martinez confirmed what Maya already knew. She was 8 weeks pregnant and healthy. The baby was due in early March. "Do you have support at home?" Dr. Martinez asked gently. Maya thought about her cramped studio apartment and her precarious financial situation. "I'm working on it." "The father?" "He's not in the picture." Maya's voice was steady, but her heart ached saying it. That evening, Maya and Sophia sat in Maya's tiny kitchen, making lists and crunching numbers. The reality was sobering, but not impossible. "You can finish this semester," Sophia said, "but you'll probably need to take a leave of absence for spring semester when the baby comes." Maya nodded, though the thought terrified her. "I can pick up more hours at the cafe, maybe find weekend work." "What about the father? Don't you think he has a right to know?" Maya had been dreading this question. "How am I supposed to tell him? Walk into his office and announce I'm pregnant? He probably has a dozen women throwing themselves at him. He won't even remember my name." "You don't know that. You said the connection felt real." "It felt real to me," Maya corrected. "But to him? I was probably just another charity case he helped for an evening. Rich men like Alexander Blackstone don't have relationships with women like me. They have fun with us and then go back to their real lives." Sophia looked skeptical but didn't push. Maya appreciated that. She'd made her decision. She would raise this baby alone the same way her mother had raised her after Maya's father had disappeared when she was 2. "Okay, but you need to be practical," Sophia said. "You're going to need help. Childcare, money for medical bills, a bigger apartment eventually." Maya pulled out a notebook and started making lists: income sources, expenses, timeline for finishing school. The numbers were daunting, but Maya had been poor her entire life. She knew how to stretch a dollar and make tough choices. "I can defer student loans during leave of absence," Maya said, "and there are programs for single mothers going back to school. It won't be easy, but it's doable." As they worked through the practical details, Maya felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. This wasn't the life she'd planned, but maybe that was okay. Maybe the best things really did happen when you weren't looking for them. Maya became an expert at hiding her pregnancy. Loose scrubs at her new part-time job at the hospital, oversized hoodies in class, strategic positioning behind the coffee. Counter at work. By December, she was 5 months along and starting to show despite her best efforts. She'd switched from nursing clinical rotations to online theory classes, claiming she needed to focus on boards preparation. The morning sickness had been brutal for the first trimester, but now Maya felt better than she had in months. She loved feeling the baby move, loved talking to her growing belly during quiet moments between classes. "We're going to be okay. Little one," she would whisper during her breaks at the hospital. "Mama's going to take good care of you." Maya had started thinking of the baby as a girl, though she hadn't confirmed it yet. Something about the way she carried, the way the baby moved, felt feminine to her. She'd started a secret list of names: Emma, Grace, Isabella, names that sounded strong and beautiful. Her work at the hospital had taken on new meaning now that she was pregnant. She found herself drawn to the maternity ward during her breaks, watching new mothers with their babies, trying to imagine what her own experience would be like. Nurse Patricia Williams, one of the senior staff in pediatrics, had taken Maya under her wing. "You're going to make an excellent nurse," Patricia told her one afternoon. "You have natural instincts with the children. Have you thought about specializing?" "In pediatrics?" "It's my dream," Maya admitted. "I want to work with kids who are sick, help their families navigate the system. Well, you certainly understand what it's like to struggle. That experience will make you a better advocate for your patients." Maya smiled, one hand instinctively moving to her hidden belly. Patricia had no idea how much Maya's understanding of struggle was about to expand. She was working the early shift at Sunrise Cafe when her carefully constructed world began to crumble. The bell above the door chimed, and Maya looked up from the espresso machine to see James Morrison, Alexander's personal assistant, walking toward the counter. Maya's blood turned to ice. She ducked her head, hoping her hair would hide her face, and turned toward the back counter. "Excuse me," James called out. "Are you Maya Chen?" Maya's heart stopped. Slowly, she turned around. "I'm sorry, who's asking?" James smiled professionally. "My name is James Morrison. I work for Alexander Blackstone. He's been looking for you." Maya's hands instinctively moved to her belly, hidden beneath her loose apron. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ms. Chen, Mr. Blackstone has been trying to locate you for months. He found your note, but he'd like to speak with you, personally." Maya's mind raced. How had he found her? She'd been so careful to maintain her distance, to avoid any places where she might run into him or his associates. "That's not necessary," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Please tell him I'm fine and he doesn't need to worry about me." James studied her carefully, and Maya had the uncomfortable feeling he was cataloguing details about her appearance. "He's not worried, Ms. Chen. He's interested. He asked me to give you this." He handed her an envelope with her name written in elegant handwriting. Inside was a simple card. "Please have dinner with me tonight. I've missed talking with you." Alexander below was an address and a time, 7 p.m. "I can't," Maya said immediately. "Please tell him thank you, but no." "Ms. Chen," James said gently, "Mr. Blackstone doesn't make requests lightly. He's a very busy man, but he's been thinking about you for months. Whatever happened between you two, he'd like the chance to address it." Maya felt tears threatening. Nothing happened. It was just one night. "Then why have you been so hard to find?" Maya didn't have a good answer for that. After James left, she stared at the card for the rest of her shift. Part of her wanted desperately to see Alexander again, but the rational part of her brain knew it would be a disaster. She was 5 months pregnant with his child, and he had no idea. That evening, instead of going to the address on the card, Maya went to Sophia's apartment and broke down completely. "You have to tell him," Sophia said after Maya explained what had happened. "He's actively looking for you. What happens when he finds out about the pregnancy some other way?" "He won't find out. Maya, be realistic. You're having his baby in 4 months. You can't hide forever." But Maya was terrified, not just of Alexander's reaction, but of what his wealth and power could mean for her and the baby. What if he tried to take the child away? What if he thought she'd gotten pregnant on purpose to trap him? What if he offered her money to disappear? Alexander sat in the private dining room of his favorite restaurant until 9 p.m., checking his phone every few minutes. Maya never showed. He'd been searching for her since the morning after their night together, when he'd emerged from the shower to find her gone with only a polite note. At first, he'd respected her wishes, but as weeks turned to months, he couldn't shake the feeling that their connection had been real. Maya Chen was the first woman in years who'd seen him as more than his bank account. She'd argued with him about social inequality, challenged his assumptions, made him laugh. For one night, he'd felt like a normal man instead of a corporate entity. "She didn't come," James reported when Alexander returned to his office. "I gathered that." Alexander loosened his tie, frustrated. "What did you think of her when you saw her today?" James hesitated. "She seemed different, nervous, almost scared." "Scared of what?" "I'm not sure, sir, but she was very adamant about not seeing you." "And what?" "She looked different than in the photos from the gala. Softer, maybe." "Like she'd gained some weight." Alexander frowned, meaning? "Nothing specific, sir. Just an observation." Alexander stared out his office window at the city lights below. Maybe Maya had moved on. Maybe that night had meant nothing to her after all. But something in his gut told him there was more to the story. He pulled out his phone and called his head of security. "Marcus, I need you to do some discreet background checking on someone. Maya Chen. I'll send you what details I have." If Maya wouldn't come to him, maybe it was time to understand why. Marcus Rodriguez was the best private investigator Alexander had ever worked with. Discreet, thorough, and ethical, he found information without crossing legal or moral lines. 3 days after the missed dinner, Marcus sat in Alexander's office with a thin file. "Maya Chen, 22 years old, nursing student at Metropolitan University," Marcus began. "Works part-time at Sunrise Cafe and picks up occasional catering shifts. Lives alone in a studio apartment in the University District. That's all." "Public information," Alexander said impatiently. Here's where it gets interesting. She's been seen entering and leaving medical facilities regularly over the past few months. Always alone, always looking nervous, and Sir, Marcus paused. Recent photos show significant physical changes consistent with pregnancy. Alexander went very still. Pregnancy. I can't confirm it without invasive investigation, which I won't do, but the timeline is consistent with your encounter in September. Alexander's mind reeled. Maya was pregnant with his child. Why hadn't she told him? There's more, Marcus continued. Financial records show she's been struggling. Student loans in deferment, medical bills being paid in installments. She's been working extra shifts, but also calling in sick more frequently. Alexander stood up and walked to his window, processing this information. If Maya was pregnant with his child, why was she handling it alone? Why hadn't she reached out? Sir, Marcus prompted. Thank you, Marcus. This stays between us. Of course. After Marcus left, Alexander sat in his office trying to piece together Maya's perspective. She was pregnant, alone and struggling financially. She'd tried to avoid him completely, had seemed terrified when James approached her. Did she think he wouldn't want the baby? Did she think he'd abandon her? Or worse, did she think he'd try to take the child away? Alexander picked up his phone to call Maya directly, then put it down. This conversation needed to happen in person. 2 days before Christmas, Maya's carefully hidden world exploded. She was leaving her doctor's appointment, a routine checkup at 24 weeks, when she literally ran into Victoria Blackstone, Alexander's younger sister, in the hospital lobby. Victoria, a medical resident at the same hospital, took one look at Maya's rounded belly, and her face went white. "Oh my God," Victoria breathed. "You're pregnant." Maya tried to step around her, but Victoria caught her arm gently. "Maya, right? You're the girl from the coffee incident. Alex has been looking for you everywhere. Please don't tell him you saw me," Maya whispered desperately. Victoria stared at Maya's belly, then back at her face. Maya could see the exact moment Victoria did the math, the timing, the pregnancy, her brother's months-long search for a mysterious woman. "It's his, isn't it?" Victoria's voice was barely audible. "The baby is Alex's." Maya's silence was answer enough. "How far along are you?" 24 weeks. Victoria closed her eyes, calculating. "Maya, he has a right to know." "No." Maya's voice was fierce. "He has a right to the life he chose. I'm not going to trap him with a pregnancy he never wanted. You don't know what he wants. Alex isn't like other rich guys. He actually cares about doing the right thing." "The right thing?" Maya laughed bitterly. "You think the right thing is forcing a billionaire to be responsible for a baby he never planned for? Your brother can have any woman he wants. He doesn't need to be tied down by some nursing student and her accidental pregnancy." Victoria looked around the busy hospital lobby, then made a decision. "Come with me. We need to talk privately." In an empty consultation room, Victoria sat across from Maya with the intensity of someone used to delivering difficult news. "Let me tell you something about my brother that you probably don't know," Victoria began. "Alex grew up in foster care because our parents died in a car accident when he was 8 and I was 6. We were separated, different homes, different families. He spent his entire childhood dreaming of having a real family again." Maya's heart clenched, but she remained silent. "When Alex made his first million, you know what he did? He hired the best private investigator money could buy to find me. It took him 3 years, but he never gave up. Family means everything to him." "This is different," Maya protested. "This isn't planned family. This is an accident that could ruin both our lives." Victoria leaned forward. "Maya, I've watched my brother date dozens of women over the years. Supermodels, actresses, socialites, beautiful women who bored him within weeks. But for the past 4 months, all he talks about is some mysterious woman who challenged him, who made him feel human again. That's you." Tears started falling down Maya's cheeks despite her efforts to stay strong. "He's been miserable," Victoria continued. "Distracted at work, barely sleeping. James told me Alex has hired 3 different private investigators to try to find you. Not to harass you, but because he can't stop thinking about you." "What if—" "He's angry," Maya whispered. What if he thinks I got pregnant on purpose? Then you'll deal with that together. But Maya, this baby deserves to know its father, and Alex deserves the chance to be the father he never had. Victoria pulled out her phone. I'm going to call him right now. Wait! Maya grabbed Victoria's wrist. If you're going to tell him, let me do it. I owe him that much. Victoria studied Maya's face, then nodded. Okay. But you call him tonight, or I will. That night, Maya sat on her tiny couch with Alexander's business card in one hand and her phone in the other. She'd been staring at the numbers for an hour, practicing what she would say. Finally, she dialed. Blackstone. Just hearing his voice made Maya's chest tighten. Alexander? It's Maya Chen. There was a long pause. Maya. His voice softened immediately. I've been looking for you. I know. I'm sorry I didn't come to dinner the other night. Where are you? Can I see you? Maya closed her eyes. We need to talk, but not in person. Not yet. Okay. Alexander's voice was cautious now. What's going on? Maya took a shaky breath. Alexander, that night we spent together. Something happened. Something I need to tell you. Another pause. Are you in trouble? Do you need money? The assumption hurt, even though Maya understood why he'd think it. I'm pregnant. The words came out in a rush. I'm 24 weeks pregnant and the baby is yours. The silence stretched so long that Maya thought the call had dropped. Alexander, are you there? I'm here. His voice was strange, controlled. You're certain the baby is mine? The question hit Maya like a slap, though she knew it was reasonable. Yes, I'm certain. You were my first, my only. Another long pause. When Alexander spoke again, his voice was softer. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Maya started crying then, months of stress and fear pouring out. Because I was terrified. Because we're from completely different worlds. Because I thought you'd assume I got pregnant on purpose to trap you. Maya. Alexander's voice was gentler now. I would never think that. Where are you right now? At home. I'm coming. Over. No, Maya said quickly. I'm not ready to see you yet. I just needed you to know. Okay, Alexander said carefully. But we need to talk about this properly. Will you have lunch with me tomorrow? Maya wiped her eyes. Okay, but somewhere quiet. I can't handle a scene. I'll send James with an address. Maya? Yes? Are you for telling me? After she hung up, Maya sat in her dark apartment feeling like her entire world had shifted. There was no going back now. Maya chose a simple black dress that accommodated her growing belly without drawing attention to it. She was nervous enough to make herself sick, but she owed Alexander this conversation. The restaurant was small and intimate, with private booths and discreet service. Alexander was already waiting when she arrived, looking as handsome as she. Remembered but somehow different, more intense, more focused. He stood when he saw her, his eyes immediately going to her rounded belly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hi, Maya said softly. Hi. Alexander's voice was hoarse. You look beautiful. Maya laughed shakily. I look pregnant. You look beautiful pregnant. Alexander helped her into the booth, his hand lingering on her back. The casual intimacy of the gesture made Maya's heart race. How are you feeling? Alexander asked once they were seated. Are you healthy? Is the baby healthy? We're both fine. The doctor says everything is progressing normally. Alexander nodded, then looked directly at her. Maya, I need you to know something. What happened between us that night? It wasn't casual for me. I've been thinking about you every day for 4 months. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Alexander, I can't be what you need me to be. I'm not sophisticated or glamorous. I work in a coffee shop and live in a studio apartment that's probably smaller than your closet. I don't care about any of that. You say that now, but Maya. Alexander reached across the table and took her hand. I grew up with nothing. I know what real value looks like, and it has nothing to do with money or status. That night you made me feel like myself for the first time in years. Maya stared at their joined hands. What happens now? Now we figure this out together. I want to be involved, Maya. I want to be a father to this baby. What does that mean exactly? Alexander was quiet for a moment. It means I want to take care of you both. It means I want to be there for every appointment, every milestone. It means I don't want you working 2 jobs while you're pregnant with my child. Maya pulled her hand away. I can take care of myself. I know you can, but you shouldn't have, too. The argument that followed was their first real fight, but it established important boundaries that would shape their entire relationship. Maya made it clear she wouldn't be anyone's kept woman. Alexander made it equally clear that he wouldn't abandon his responsibilities as a father. They reached a compromise that satisfied neither, but worked for both. Alexander would pay for Maya's medical expenses and help with pregnancy-related costs, but Maya would continue working and living independently until after the baby was born. They would attend doctor's appointments together and make major decisions about the baby's care as a team. It was awkward and formal, but it was a start. I want to be clear about something, Maya said as they finished lunch. I'm not looking for a relationship with you. I'm not trying to trap you into anything. I just want to do what's best for the baby. Alexander's jaw tightened. And what if I want a relationship with you? Maya's heart stuttered, but she forced herself to stay firm. Then you'll have to prove that it's about more than just the baby. Over the following weeks, they began building a cautious relationship. Alexander accompanied Maya to her next ultrasound, where they learned they were having a daughter. Maya watched Alexander's face as he saw his daughter moving on the screen, and the wonder in his expression made her fall in love with him all over again. They had dinner twice a week, always somewhere quiet where Maya felt comfortable. Alexander told her about his business, his foundation, his dreams of using technology to solve social problems. Maya shared her plans for after graduation, her hopes of specializing in pediatric nursing. Slowly, carefully, they began to trust each other. Alexander was nothing like the cold businessman Maya had expected. He was thoughtful, funny, surprisingly down-to-earth despite his wealth. He remembered details about her day, brought her books he thought she'd enjoy, asked genuine questions about her studies. Maya found herself looking forward to their dinners more than she wanted to admit. Just after New Year, everything changed again. Maya was 28 weeks pregnant when she started experiencing contractions during a routine day at work. Her supervisor at the hospital recognized the signs immediately and rushed her to the maternity ward. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation despite the shared last name, examined Maya with professional calm that didn't quite hide her concern. Maya, you're showing signs of preterm labor. We're going to admit you for observation and try to stop the contractions. Maya was terrified. Is the baby okay? The baby's fine right now, but we need to keep you both that way. I'm prescribing bed rest for the remainder of your pregnancy. Maya's heart sank. I can't afford to stop working. You can't afford not to stop working. Maya, if these contractions progress, you could deliver a baby who isn't ready to survive outside the womb. The next person through the door was Alexander, still in a business suit looking panicked. Victoria had called him the moment Maya was admitted. What happened? Is she okay? Alexander was at Maya's bedside immediately. Dr. Chen explained the situation while Alexander listened with intense focus. When she finished, he turned to Maya. You're moving in with me. Alexander, no, we discussed this. That was before our daughter's life was at risk. Alexander's voice was firm. You need complete bed rest, which means you need someone to take care of you. You can't do that alone in a studio apartment. Maya wanted to argue, but the truth was she was scared. The idea of being alone during a medical emergency terrified her. What about my independence? What about our daughter's life? Dr. Chen cleared her throat. Maya, Mr. Blackstone has a point. Bed rest means bed rest. You'll need help with meals, medication, getting to appointments. Do you have family who can help? Maya shook her head, tears starting to fall. She had no one except Sophia, who was dealing with her own final semester of nursing school. Alexander sat on the edge of her hospital bed and took her hand. Maya, let me help, please. Alexander's penthouse felt like a different planet, but he'd clearly made efforts to make her comfortable. He'd converted his home office into a bedroom for her, complete with a hospital bed and medical monitoring equipment. "The doctor said you need to stay horizontal as much as possible," Alexander explained, showing her the room. "I've arranged for a nurse to check on you twice a day, and Victoria will stop by after her shifts at the hospital." Maya was overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. This is too much. This is what you do for someone you care about. The first week was awkward. Alexander left for work early and returned late, giving Maya space to adjust. But gradually they fell into a routine that surprised them both with its domesticity. Alexander would bring her breakfast before leaving for work and have dinner with her when he got home. They'd talk about their days, about baby names, about their hopes for their daughter. Maya had never felt so cared for in her life. Alexander anticipated her needs before she voiced them, brought her books and magazines, made sure she was comfortable and entertained. "You don't have to take care of me like this," Maya said one evening as Alexander adjusted her pillows. "I want to," Alexander said simply. "I should have been taking care of you all along." As Maya entered her third trimester, she and Alexander grew closer than she'd ever imagined possible. He worked from home most days now, setting up his laptop in her room so they could spend time together between his meetings. Maya loved watching Alexander work. He was brilliant and passionate, especially when discussing projects through his foundation. She began offering suggestions from her perspective as someone who'd grown up in poverty, and Alexander valued her insights in ways that surprised them both. "You should consider going to business school after you finish nursing," Alexander said one afternoon, after Maya had helped him restructure a grant program. "Right, because I have time and money for more school," Maya laughed. "You could if you wanted to. We could make it work." Maya looked at him curiously. "We?" Alexander paused his typing. "Maya, I know we haven't talked about this officially, but I hope you know by now that I'm not going anywhere. Whatever happens between us romantically, I'm committed to you and our daughter." One evening in February, Maya was lying on her side, watching Alexander read through grant applications when their daughter decided to have a particularly active moment. "Oh!" Maya gasped, her hand flying to her belly. Alexander looked up immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. She's just... Here, give me your hand." Maya guided Alexander's palm to the spot where their daughter was kicking. Alexander's face lit up with amazement as he felt the strong movements. "She's so active," he whispered. "She gets that from you, I think. Always moving, always working." Alexander looked at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Maya, I need to tell you something." Her heart stuttered. "What?" "I'm in love with you." The words came out quietly, but with absolute certainty. "I know this whole situation is complicated, and I know you probably don't feel the same way, but I needed you to know." Maya stared at him, her heart pounding. "Alexander, you don't have to say anything back. I just couldn't keep it to myself anymore." But Maya was already reaching for him, pulling him down for a kiss that was tender and desperate and full of months of suppressed emotion. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "I've loved you since that first night, and it's terrified me every day since." Alexander deepened the kiss, careful not to put pressure on her belly. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I want to marry you," Alexander said suddenly. "Not because of the baby, but because I can't imagine my life without you." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Alexander, I know it's too soon. I know you need time to trust that this is real, but Maya, I want forever with you." Maya traced his face with her fingertips, memorizing every detail. "Ask me again after she's born." "Is that a maybe?" Maya smiled through her tears. Let's see if you still feel this way when you're dealing with a crying baby at 3 a.m. Alexander laughed and kissed her forehead. "Maya Chen, I have never been more certain of anything in my life." Emma Catherine Blackstone Chen decided to make her entrance into the world at 3 a.m. on a snowy February morning, 3 weeks before her due date, but healthy and strong. Maya's labor was fast and intense after weeks of careful monitoring. Alexander held her hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement and love. When Emma finally arrived, screaming and perfect, both parents were crying. "She's beautiful," Alexander whispered, his voice thick with emotion as the nurse placed Emma on Maya's chest. "She looks like you," Maya said, stroking their daughters. "Dark hair. She has your eyes." Emma was indeed perfect. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of healthy baby girl with strong lungs and her father's determined chin. Alexander cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, officially welcoming his daughter into the world. That first night in the hospital, Maya watched Alexander hold Emma while she slept. He looked natural with her, like he'd been meant to be, a father his entire life. "What are you thinking about?" Maya asked softly. "I'm thinking about how my life was completely empty before I met you," Alexander said, without looking up from Emma. "And now I have everything I never knew I wanted." Maya felt her heart swell with love for this man, who turned her entire world upside down in the most wonderful way possible. "Alexander." Ask me again." Alexander looked up, understanding immediately. "Maya Chen, will you marry me?" "Yes," Maya whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." 3 months after Emma's birth, Maya was settling into life as a new mother, while finishing her nursing degree through online classes. Alexander had insisted on hiring a nanny so Maya could focus on her studies, but Maya preferred to care for Emma herself most of the time. They were living together officially now in a beautiful house Alexander had bought in a family-friendly neighborhood. It had a nursery with windows facing the garden, a home office for Maya to study in, and enough space for the family they both hoped to grow. One evening in May, Alexander came home from work with an unusual expression on his face. "Maya, can you come into the living room for a minute?" Maya looked up from where she was nursing Emma. "Can it wait? She's almost finished eating." It can wait. But Alexander was pacing nervously, which was unlike him. Maya's curiosity was piqued. When Emma was settled in her bouncer, Maya joined Alexander in the living room. He was standing by the window, still wearing his suit from work, but looking unusually disheveled. "Alexander, what's going on? You're making me nervous." Alexander turned to face her, and Maya was surprised to see vulnerability in his expression. "Maya, these past few months with you and Emma have been the best of my life. I know we didn't plan any of this, and I know our relationship happened in completely unconventional circumstances, but I can't imagine my life without you both." As he spoke, Alexander dropped to one knee and pulled out a small velvet box. Maya's hands flew to her mouth. "Alexander, I know I already asked you in the hospital, but I wanted to do this properly. Maya Chen, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life taking care of you and Emma and any other children we might have? Will you be my family?" Maya stared at the ring, a simple, elegant solitaire that was perfect in its understated beauty. Then she looked at Alexander, this man who'd turned her entire world upside down in the most wonderful way possible. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. Of course I'll marry you." Maya and Alexander were married 6 months later in a small ceremony in their garden. Maya wore a simple white dress that she'd chosen herself, and Emma served as the world's youngest flower girl in Victoria's arms. The guest list was tiny. Victoria, Sophia, a few close friends from Alexander's business world, and some of Maya's nursing school classmates. Maya had no family except the one she was creating with Alexander, and that felt exactly right. Maya's favorite moment came during their vows, which they'd written themselves. "Maya," Alexander began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, "you taught me that the best things in life aren't planned or purchased. They're discovered by accident and cherished forever. You gave me Emma, but more than that, you gave me a reason to be the man I always wanted to become. I promise to love you, support your dreams, and never take for granted the gift of your trust." Maya's vows were simpler, but no less heartfelt. "Alexander, you saw me when I felt invisible. You valued me when I felt worthless. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. I promise to spend the rest of my life showing you that taking a chance on us was the best decision you ever made." As they kissed to seal their marriage, Emma gurgled happily from Victoria's arms, as if she approved of her parents' decision to make their accidental family official. The first year of marriage brought challenges neither Maya nor Alexander had anticipated, but they faced them together. Maya struggled to balance her new role as Alexander's wife with her determination to maintain her own identity. The social expectations that came with being married to a billionaire were overwhelming at first. "I don't know how to be the wife of someone like you," Maya confessed one evening after a particularly stressful charity function. "Be yourself, Alexander," said simply. "That's who I fell in love with." Maya finished her nursing degree 6 months after their wedding, graduating summa cum laude despite everything she'd been through. Alexander was in the front row at her graduation, Emma on his lap, both beaming with pride. Dr. Maya Blackstone started her career in pediatric nursing at Children's Hospital, working with families who reminded her of her own childhood struggles. She quickly became known for her compassion and advocacy, often going above and beyond to help families navigate the healthcare system. Alexander supported Maya's career completely, adjusting his own schedule to share parenting duties and never missing an important moment in Emma's development. When Emma was 2 years old, Maya and Alexander decided to expand their family. They welcomed James Alexander Blackstone on a sunny October morning, a calm baby who was the perfect complement to his energetic big sister. But they didn't stop there. True to their conversation about adoption, Maya and Alexander became foster parents, eventually adopting 2 siblings, Sophia, age 4, and David, age 6, who had been in the system for years. "This is what family looks like," Alexander said one evening, watching Maya help all 4 children with various bedtime routines. "Messy, loud, perfect chaos," Maya smiled, thinking about how far they'd both come from that collision in the office building lobby. "I love our chaos." Their home was always full of noise and laughter, homework and art projects, bedtime stories, and early morning cartoons. Alexander proved to be a natural father, patient and playful, never too busy for tea parties with Sophia or soccer practice with David. Maya had never imagined she could be this happy. Dr. Maya Blackstone finished her shift at Children's Hospital and headed home to the family she still sometimes couldn't believe was real. She'd completed her nursing degree, gotten married, earned her master's in pediatric nursing, and become a mother to 4 children while establishing herself as one of the hospital's most respected nurses. Alexander was in his home office when Maya arrived. Emma, now a precocious 7-year-old, who had her father wrapped around her little finger. James was 4 years old and currently helping Sophia with her homework, while David practiced violin in the music room. "How was work?" Alexander asked, pulling Maya into his arms for a welcome home kiss. "Good. Busy. How are the kids?" Emma taught James how to finger paint. "I think we'll need to repaint the playroom. Again." Maya laughed. "Did you get the call from the social worker?" Alexander's face lit up. "We're approved for the baby. She'll be here next week." Maya and Alexander had decided to adopt a newborn, whose teenage mother had chosen them from several potential families. Isabella Rose would be their 5th child, and all 4 siblings were excited about welcoming their baby sister. That evening, as they sat in their living room watching Emma read to James while Sophia and David worked on a puzzle together, Maya reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked Alexander quietly. "The way everything happened so fast and unexpectedly." Alexander looked at her like she'd asked if he regretted breathing. "Maya, that night you spilled coffee on me was the luckiest moment of my life. Everything good in my world started with that accident." Maya smiled, thinking about the scared 22-year-old girl who'd thought her life was over when she saw those 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. That girl never could have imagined that an accidental pregnancy would lead to this: a loving marriage, 5 beautiful children, a career she adored, and a partner who supported her dreams completely. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories began with the most unexpected chapters. Emma looked up from her book and grinned at her parents. "Mommy, Daddy, are you being mushy again?" Alexander laughed and scooped both Emma and James into his arms. "Yes, sweetheart, we're being very mushy." "Good," Emma declared with 7-year-old wisdom. "Families should be mushy." Maya watched her husband with their children and felt her heart swell with gratitude. She'd learned that love didn't always arrive wrapped in perfect circumstances, but when it was real, it could transform even the most frightening accidents into the most beautiful blessings. Their love story had begun with a collision, literally and figuratively. But sometimes, Maya thought as she joined her family on the couch, the best destinations were reached by taking the most unexpected detours. The virgin girl who had accidentally gotten pregnant for the billionaire had discovered that sometimes accidents were actually destiny wearing a clever disguise.